31st, 2019, and being interviewed is Brian Martin Smith, when's your birthday?
July 27, 1956.
What's your current address?
7322 Manatee Avenue West, number 287, Bradenton, Florida, 34209.
And just so we have it clear, the people attending this interview are Harper, Ian, Josh, Carlton, and that's all.
Harper have a last name?
Harper Callansley. Do you want me to say all your last names too?
Absolutely. Carlton Cartwright.
Carlton Cartwright.
Ian Fife.
Ian Fife.
Joshua Harper.
Joshua Harper. Nice last name. And Brandon has my middle name. Okay,
Thank you. I know who to track down now.
How about you?
I have like 3 other names, so I'm good.
Okay. What war and branch of the service did you serve?
I served in the United States Army from 1974 to 1994.
What was your rank?
I was First Sergeant, E8 in the United States Army.
And where did you serve?
I spent 11 years stationed overseas in the U.S. Army. I spent a total of 66 months of that time of my military service in drawing combat pay. I was stationed in Europe, Korea, and other locations.
Were you drafted or did you enlist?
I enlisted at 17 years old,
Where were you living when you enlisted?
Phoenix, Arizona.
Why did you join?
I was working 40 hours a week, and a friend of mine was joining the Air Force, and I was going to high school at that time, and I said, okay. I joined the Army and took a pay cut. I joined the Army, and my first pay was $321.10 a month. When I joined the Army, I was making $400 a month at a grocery store named Bash's, Phoenix, Arizona.
Why did you pick the service branch you joined?
I wanted to be a cavalryman. I wanted to ride on tanks. We had, 2 years before, had a unit from Fort Carson, Colorado, a cavalry unit, come down to our high school, and I saw tanks and helicopters. This was probably 1972, and I wanted to be part of it.
Do you remember and recall the first days in service? What did you feel like?
Yes, Fort Knox, Kentucky. Put me on an airplane, flew me over there, flew to Dallas, Texas, and met my congressman who was waiting for an airplane. And then I flew on to Louisville, Kentucky, moving on to Fort Knox, Kentucky. Strange.
Tell me a little bit about boot camp.
Boot camp was interesting, being, as I look back now, as a teenager. Our drill sergeants and instructors were all Vietnam vets, and it was different. It was a different army then. They were trying to bring, nobody was going to combat. Everybody was going to face the great Soviet tide. And they had to switch from Vietnam to the Soviets. That was hard for them. They had been combat veterans, and then all of a sudden they went from Asia going to Europe.
So you remember your instructors?
I do.
How did you get through it, boot camp?
Tell us about your instructor.
Drill sergeants, 2 of them. One was a German. He joined the Army. I cannot recall the name without thinking about him, but I can see his face to this day. He was a staff sergeant, and at the end of his cycle, he was promoted to sergeant first class. We had another one, but we lived in World War II barracks, and these were men I wanted to emulate. It was years later when they filmed the movie Stripes. That was my old barracks area. I had 2 good drill sergeants, and I thank them today, and I have to, being old, I have to look for their names.
Which war did you serve in?
Which time?
First one, which one?
El Salvador.
What were your duties? What was your mission?
Assigned a military intelligence unit that was to support the Salvadoran armed forces, strictly as an advisor, an attempt to train.
What year was that?
1983.
Were there any casualties in your unit?
I was assigned there as an individual, so there were none.
And the second engagement? Or the next one?
Hooked a ride on an aircraft, and I wound up in Grenada.
How long were you there?
46 hours.
What year was that?
1983.
Any casualties?
Several, but none with I was with.
Okay. And did they survive, or were they only hospitalized?
Oh, they were hospitalized.
Okay. Okay, and the next one?
Next. War?
Yes.
Lebanon,
Deployment. Yeah, okay. What year was that?
1983.
How long were you there?
2 weeks.
Casualties?
Unknown. It was after the Marine bombing.
Next one?
Combat operations
Yes.
or deployment to an area.
Either or both.
Classified.
Got it. Where? Country? Classified?
Charlie Wilson's War.
Is that in the Middle East?
See the movie.
I have. It's been a while.
Okay.
Next one?
After I got back, I'm trying to think of the years.
Take your time. Sure you're aware the chronology is important. Go ahead.
I'm trying to get back to Berlin, and after that, back to El Salvador.
Okay. Casualties?
None who were assigned to me.
Next one?
Honduras,
How long were you there?
2 weeks.
Casualties?
None that were assigned to me.
Okay. Out of the units that were there,
How about we say this?
go ahead.
I served in Central America,
Uh-huh.
and there were casualties who were on both sides.
Okay.
Okay. Some of the casualties were not native to Central America.
Right?
Okay. And that's about all I could say.
Okay. How many different countries did you travel to while you were on active duty? And that's R&R included.
Oh well.
Uh-oh. If that's far.
Do we have enough film in the camera for that?
You do, go ahead.
Okay. Let's see. Let's go from north to south. Sweden, Norway, Germany, of course, England, Belgium, France, Holland, Italy, Spain, Portugal, Croatia, Yugoslavia, Greece, Egypt, Israel, Saudi Arabia, Yemen, Somalia, Afghanistan, another country near there, Korea, Japan, Colombia, Bolivia, Panama, Costa Rica, El Salvador, Honduras. One country between the two I can't remember.
That's okay. I think I should have said, where have you not been? And then you would have said Alaska, and that would have been it.
No, I've been in Alaska, flew there, but flew through there. Japan, as I bring up, I've been to 5 of the 7 continents, and either the penguins can't shoot straight or the Australians like me, or vice versa.
Pick it up, man. Hold on. Overall, how many, I see you're retired Army?
That's correct.
How many years did you do?
19 years and 6 months.
In your estimation, have you witnessed a lot of casualties over that period of time?
Yes, sir, I have.
Go ahead.
Did you see combat?
Yes.
Tell me, yes.
No.
No. Did you see any combat?
No.
Okay.
Were there any casualties in your unit? I guess you
Just did that.
said.
There was one casualty that was not in my unit, but I need to bring up.
Okay.
When I was assigned to Berlin, okay, when it was still occupied, this was when a man named Nicholson was shot by the Soviets. He was on an authorized mission, and he was killed by the Soviets. This was during my time in Berlin.
What year was that? Remember?
I'd have
Decade.
the 80s.
80s, okay.
Okay, before the wall came down. I have revisited that, and I look there what happened. The incident what happened is he was shot by the Soviet. Oh, may I?
Yeah.
He was shot by the Soviets trying to gain intelligence because the man was a great intelligence officer. He had provided America with some great information. I won't go into detail, but we believe he was targeted for assassination. He was a major at the time. He became a lieutenant colonel on his death, and the Soviets would not let his sergeant assist him
Was he east or west of the wall at the time?
east. He was a member of the U.S. military liaison mission, which was formally recognized back then. But a long time ago, a place far, far away, I had hair. And a beard. Better.
Yeah, not hard to do that.
Were you a prisoner of war?
No.
Were you awarded any medals or citations?
Next question.
Did you sustain any injuries?
Mentally, yes. Physically, in some sorts. As I'm now 63, there are parts of me that hurt that shouldn't hurt, but that's it. Jumping of an airplane is not a natural act.
Right? You collecting disability?
No,
What do you do now?
I'm retired.
What did you do after you got out of the service?
Where were you
Were you a private
when you
investigator?
separated? Where were you when you separated?
Fort Hood, Texas.
You remember your last days in the service?
I sure do.
What were you doing?
I was the S2 as a master sergeant because I'd left my being a first sergeant as the intelligence officer for a battalion. The lieutenant colonel went on to be, you might know her because she was involved in Abu Ghraib.
Okay. All right, so what year did you separate?
I retired on December 31st, 1993. My last date in the military was actually January 1st, 1994. I took early retirement.
Okay, so did you use your educational benefits, GI Bill? Did you use those benefits?
Yes, I did. While I was in the military, I was able to get my. I joined the Army as a junior. I got my GED. Then when I went first into Germany with the 2nd Armored Cavalry Regiment, I was able to, they sent me to school and I was able to become a graduate of the Nuremberg American High School in Nuremberg, Germany in 1975.
What were you doing prior to your entering into the service?
I worked for as a high school student, and I worked for a company called, a grocery store called Bash's in Phoenix, Arizona.
Did you, before, during, or after the service, complete a professional education?
While I was in the service, I completed not only my high school diploma, but I also completed my bachelor's degree,
In?
liberal arts. And upon retirement, I graduated with a master's in organizational management from the University of Phoenix.
Okay. And so, did you have another career after the military?
I did. I worked for in educational, and upon receiving my master's degree, I went to work for the federal government. My first employer was the Export-Import Bank of the United States, and then I went to work for the Department of Transportation, and then I went to work for FEMA.
And are you retired again?
I am retired again.
What did you do for FEMA?
I worked down in Florida as a travel specialist. And the reason why I did that is my late wife's family was here, and I had to be close to my father-in-law. So I accepted a position which was $20,000 less than I had before.
Less than you had in the previous job?
Yes. I mean, I was at a position, I was, yeah.
What was your previous job?
I worked for the Department of Transportation. I managed the Army's mass transit program. I was the program manager for about $10 million.
Were you married before you left the service?
Yes.
And how long were you married?
Which time?
Okay. Go ahead. Number one.
No, no.
Okay. Number two.
No, no.
Number three.
How about,
I got more numbers. So anyway, the lady that, do you have children?
which one?
Just whichever.
I have, let's put it this way. I have two wives that have produced children. My second wife has my son, who also joined Special Forces. My son doesn't listen, for the record, okay? I then,
No, that feeling. Go ahead.
I then married another woman, and she was in, I'm trying to like, yeah. She also was in the military. She was in military intelligence with me, and the old adage was never sleep with anybody who didn't have the same clearance as you. Okay?
Okay.
That goes on. I met another woman, and she is the mother. She didn't have the same clearance as me, but she had the ability when I signed up, and then she could tell her what I really did for a living. She thought I was an MP.
MP. Got it. Okay. So,
And she gave me $2.
okay.
She did not understand English.
Okay.
The goes there is like, give me sons, you know.
All right. Your turn. You got anything? Because we still got a few more.
So you said you retired early, slightly early?
I retired 6 months early because at that time the Army was offering retirement. And after doing the numbers, I lost $150.
Where were you?
Fort Hood, Texas. I requested, the Army at that time had gone, they were trying to reduce their numbers from leaving a corps in Europe.
Do you still have any friends from the service that you're friends with now?
Yes, I do.
And you continue those relationships?
I
still?
do.
Any of them particularly special you want to tell us about?
Well, a couple of them. One is my best friend in the military is Phil, and he worked with my ex-wife, and he worked with my late wife. After I retired, I met somebody, and she became the love of my life, and she died about 6 years ago. But Philip, who was also retired from the Air Force, we met 35 years ago. But there were other guys who knew what I did in Berlin, and that was a big deal because I could talk to them because they'd signed their life away. I mentioned it before, it's now declassified that I was assigned to a secret special forces unit in Berlin. And there's a book out called Special Forces Berlin that details that. So I look at it as you can talk about a lot of these things. And it goes back to places, but not things I did. That's the important thing. You know.
So are you a member of the American Legion?
Yes, I am.
Are you in any other veterans organizations?
I am a life member of the of the VFW. And I am a former commander of the Kenneth Nash Post Number 4 of Washington, D.C.
Did your military experience influence your thinking about war or about the military in general?
Yes. Do I get to elaborate?
Yes.
Please elaborate.
I joined the Army thinking I was a kid and about glory. You know, the first time you get covered in blood, you forget about glory. Okay, you like, get this person out of here. In El Salvador, we were 20 minutes late to be someplace because a Marine was drunk. They blew up the building. They were trying to kill us. Okay? War's not glamorous. And our wars haven't been honorable in a sense of both sides. You know, there is no glory. And it's really hard when you're covered in blood to try and see the humanity there. I learned something that I never wanted to learn, that tampons are really a good blood stopper. I shared that with my son who served in Iraq, and I made sure my daughter, who's headed somewhere, who's a sergeant in the Army right now, has done that. I've sat at Bethesda Naval Hospital, which is now Walter Reed, with people I didn't know. I said, it's tough. People were doing their job, and people have stepped up in the military. And I've had the fortunate advantage of serving with Marines and Air Force and Navy, and God bless them, the Coast Guard. When you have somebody else's blood on you, it's a changing experience. As an added point, I have been in my career, I have been invited to many Air Force celebrations and Marine Corps celebrations. I had the unique experience of serving with both of them. I also had the unique experience with serving with our NATO partners. My position in those was looking at a high level looking down that is unique in people's experience.
What kinds of activities does your post or association have?
We have veterans outreach. We help in our community. We try and several of our people try to help our veterans, our local veterans.
Do you attend reunions?
No.
How did your service and experiences affect your life?
Live life. Essen und trinken, for morgen wird tot. Eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow we die. You understand that you live, love life. be the best you can, be the best person you can. Because you want to make, there's an old saying, it goes something like this, yeah, drink fast, it goes like, you want to leave a good corpse. I lived with soldiers who death was a common experience. We knew it. You don't do the stuff that we did unless you wanted to be there. And the minute you didn't want to be there, you could leave.
You have anything else that you'd like to add or like to share with us?
The following or the previous information was totally false, and I have nothing to say that. It's pure fiction. Thank you, Tom. Tom and I have his autographs on there, and I've never heard of several people, who were up on congressional investigations at one time. For the record, I served in J2.
What was that?
When I was assigned to DIA, after I got back from Europe.
What is DIA?
DIA is the Defense Intelligence Agency.
Okay. I can't remember all those acronyms.
We're old.
You know it. I'm going to thank you for a great interview,
Yeah, that was a great interview.
and thank you for your
You're amazing.
service. Thank you for your service.
Yeah,